having known each other across 20 years, PJ Hart and I have never actually met. So we're excited about a very special episode where we'll be meeting in the flesh for the first time.
That's right. The event that we shall be meeting at, the reason for this monumental occasion is the author and comedian Marc Burrows is coming to Belfast to give us a talk on his book, The Magic of Pratchett. So obviously that's something we're both extremely excited to go and see, to meet each other in person for the first time, but also to get a chat with Marc Burrows himself to talk everything Terry Pratchett and everything Discworld.
Welcome to I've Never Read Discworld, our first outside broadcast. I'm Andy Luke. I'm waiting here in Hill Street by the Black Box and Dirty Onion for a meeting with my co-host, PJ Hart.
Afternoon to be.
Come on grab this once you guys both in. Clear this some space.
Oh, I'm too tall.
You're taller than I remember, yeah? Let's see.
Where does that
This is no regular technology. This is B&M stores technology.
Fancy stuff, there we go. Oh man, we're rolling.
There we go. Cheers, my friend.
There we go. First in person.
Yeah. Welcome to I've Never Read Discworld. I've got my luggage shirt.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not opening my jacket because it's freezing in Belfast right now.
Yeah. I've got a lovely new Never Trusted Tory hoodie, and I was going to bring it out, but then I can't pack light. I lug stuff around and I feel sweaty and nervous and creepy.
No, you have to be prepared. I'm actually coming from an overnight with my in-laws, so I've got a full suitcase here as well. Actually, so how are we feeling about the talk about Marc?
Nervous, but there's nothing to be nervous about. I haven't got my questions yet.
Me neither. I have such a mental block when it comes to these biographies. I think of Pratchett. I find them really, really hard to read. I find them kind of grief-inducing. I think, where it's like by reading these kind of posthumous books about his life, and it's just like I feel like it's bludgeoning me over the head a little bit with the fact that he's gone and there's going to be no more writing, and it all, even though like the books are obviously celebrations of his life, there's just like such a sense of loss. He went so soon, and there was so much more that could have been given, you know, and things gone a different way. So yeah, I don't know. So that's going to make this interesting, because once we're in the room, we'll be able to escape. We're going to sit and we're going to listen to Marc for what, 90 minutes, 2 hours, and not going to be able to put the book down. So if I cry, I apologise in advance.
Yeah, I had a little Wikipedia through bibliographies and that. I was noticing like 4 books that were listed as in development. Of course, his hard drive was driven over with a car. Those all
Steamroller?
Steamroller, right?
Yeah, you gotta do something, you gotta do it right, I guess. You know? Yeah, well, yeah, I was reading Marc's, actually just last night, I was reading Marc's review of the lost stories that were then found. I guess it's the ones that he published under a pen name, like way back in the day. And it was interesting to hear him kind of write and talk about all the stuff I was just kind of saying about how, like, when you lose a favourite author, like, there is that sense of grief for the person and for the work. And then when you discover new aspects of it, or work that hasn't come to light yet, you know, that can be really celebratory. But I haven't been able to bring myself to read any of that stuff, and you're trying to do everything. Well, how does that fit into your chronological reading of things? Like, would you feel like, is it okay for you to go back and read like the early short stories? Is that something you're interested in doing as you read Discworld, or do you think you would like put a pin in that until later? Or?
Yeah, definitely put a pin at the later. Like, I was looking at the collected short stories, Blink of a Screen, is it? And then the one that was released last year.
Yeah, that's the one I think I was reading the review of.
Yeah, so I definitely want to get around to that. And also, I was looking at like his appearances on TV and documentaries to do with his Alzheimer's diagnosis, and there's one come up within our. So we're looking at Small Gods next, 92. There's one called Terry Pratchett's Jungle Quest from 94.
Oh wow, that's news to me actually.
No idea what that's about, and I'm kind of yeah, I want to check out.
Yeah, because the one I would be the most familiar with would be, I guess, this one that he did on Assisted Dying, which is obviously pretty full on as documentaries go, and like he approaches it with all the kind of wit and Pratchettism that you would expect, but like still pretty full on subject matter. So yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah, we'll try and take that out.
I noticed too he's written a few short stories set around the Christmas season as well.
Yeah.
So I definitely would want to get into those.
I wonder, should we should look and see when Hogfather's going to come up and see if we can build in. And if we I probably will miss Christmas because that's always the way.
Yeah, I think October.
Well, that's close enough. That's pretty close.
Like we did.
We can always pad it out with another couple of these.
We did. 2023 we did 10 podcasts. 8 of them were books.
Yeah.
We did Mort the Big Comic and the Casting Couch. So we've done pretty well.
I think we're on track. Yeah. I mean, when you add it all up, though, I guess still 30 books, 29 books to go of just the main series. So could be at this for a while yet.
We could do the Hogfather film for Christmas.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to the Weird Sisters animation.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we must try and do that sooner rather than later. Actually, of the ones. The adaptations that I come back to that I think they're the only two that I've actually ever watched more than once. It's Weird Sisters. Oh no, sorry, Weird Sisters I actually only have watched once. I've watched Soul Music a couple of times and Hogfather a couple of times.
Oh, speaking of which, I have a gift for you for later.
Oh my goodness.
I can pocket it if you want. I have 2 copies of Soul Music.
Oh, no way! I think
heard you were missing one.
I think I am. Look at this. I don't know if you can see it. It's shiny. It's got a holographic camera. And look, oh man, look how young Terry is in the bag. I guess I'm definitely going to cry today at some stage. Oh man, that's great. What wins this from? This is a different edition to any of the paperbacks I have.
Yeah, was that or the I don't know who the artist is in that.
Oh, it's the HarperCollins US edition. Oh.
Page count's about the same as the one with the Josh Kirby cover. Aren't I getting technical for a novice?
You surpassed the people that surpassed the master? I'm not master. Yeah, so that's the American paperback from 95 from Nathan.
I think while we're both here, we might want to talk about how the podcast came about because it's kind of an unusual sort of story. So I noticed PJ was a local writer of some acclaim. He's still in the grassroots. You're catching him while he's cool.
I'm from the streets.
And I added him on Twitter. He added me, and about 2 or 3 years after, I had this bag of Discworld books, and I put a call out. Does anybody want to do a Discworld podcast with me? You got back to me. We talked about what it was, and we said, "Yeah, I'm on board."
It was a good kick up the arse for me. What I had been wrangling with at that time was I'd been putting off reading The Shepherd's Crown. For the people who listen to the podcast and know I was like real mental block about there being no more Discworld left to read. So even though I'd read most of it, I'd been holding off on reading The Shepherd's Crown, and there's a couple of others that I'd maybe missed. So I thought it was a really good motivation to do it in a really celebratory way to finish off the series with somebody like Andy who I know is going to get into it and really love it, and just finish that journey kind of with him, and it's been awesome so far. It's been great. It's like a little mini support network.
What I didn't know when I added you on Twitter was that actually we go further back. We go back to 2002, I think.
Yeah, so maybe slightly more. Typical Northern Ireland, for those listeners who are local, they'll know. For those that aren't, maybe won't, that there's only ever, 2, maybe 3 degrees of separation between anybody, especially anybody in the arts in Northern Ireland. So as it happened, we had crossed paths through mutual friends in the early days of Web 1.0.
Early dial-up, yeah.
I think friends of mine, a friend of mine was going out with a friend of yours, and a friend who back in the day was into having these really big group conversations on MSN. So if you logged on and these guys were online and you would just get invited to this group chat with 20 people. It was It's like it should have been like an IRC channel or something, but it wasn't. We were doing it on MSN for some reason, because that's what all the cool kids had, I guess.
I think I had about 12 or 14 friends in that group, and one of the sort of key hubs was a guy called Brian Smith,
Yeah.
who allegedly had 72-hour conversations, and he was on constantly. We used to talk about Terence McKenna and Robert Anton Wilson, and so
was
our
that kind of
circles
vibe, yeah.
overlapped
Yeah.
through that.
And I remember it kept going for like quite a while, for like a few years, like on and off. Like I remember even like so we started doing that when I was still at school, and then it kept going while I was at university for sure. So I remember I was like in my student house, like still getting pinged on MSN for these group chats and stuff. And I think it was a lot of people. So I was Belfast, but it was a lot of people from like the peninsula and Bangor kind of direction, which is where you're from.
Brian, myself, and a few others.
Yeah. I think I got connected to that through some mutual friends like in East Belfast, but yeah, people who don't know Northern Ireland don't give a shit about any of this, and that's totally fair. But just that weird kind of like the way we would randomly would have connected with each other back then, before we would have been like mutuals on any social networks or anything like that, because they didn't really exist unless we were talking like LiveJournal or Friendster or something like that.
Well, LiveJournal's how we stayed in touch.
I think I had Brian on LiveJournal actually. Yeah, I think you might have had yourself on LJ as well.
Yeah, it's quite a big community. And then how I found out that we had crossed paths before was I put your email or your name into my Gmail search, and I came up with a conversation about a comic strip I had in mind called Transformers in Tibet.
I was awful. I can't remember why. I can't remember how it even came up. But I have this vague recollection, of you pitching this, maybe in one of those chats, and being like, so Andy, obviously, as you guys know, writes really interesting, cool avant-garde comics, and I've always been interested in dipping my toe in more visual media, and this came up, and I was like, right, let's write a comic together, and I was like, yes, I'm going to email him, we're going to get it going, and then he was like, yep, cool, alright, so I sat down to write a script. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I have no idea how to write a comic book script. And I actually don't know that much about Transformers. I don't know that much about Tibet either. Why did I volunteer to do this? I've got no idea. So I bottled it. I built it.
Is it still recording? It is good. Yeah.
So did you ever do it? Did you ever make that comic?
No, and I've no idea what happened to the script, but it was one of those that certainly came to me in a flash, and I remember scribbling down notes for it, and it seemed really important at the time.
Yeah. What would the contemporary version of it be? I guess it'd be like, I don't know. Well, Transformers are still relatively big, I guess.
Yeah. It's got to be James Roberts.
They're not publishing though, are they? IDW lost the license.
I think Image might have it now, but James Roberts has got to be the contemporary, because if you look at his IDW run, he's got Megatron as a hard left socialist.
Oh man, so somebody beat us to it. That could have been us, man.
Politics,
that could have been us.
And it's all beautifully done. It's the same sensibility you might apply to writing The Wire, but with Transformers.
Oh yeah, we were ahead of the curve. If we could have got our act together back then, like that could have been huge. Maybe we should bring it home. Maybe we should do like Transformers in Ordoin or something like that. Or what, Ukraine, I suppose, or Gaza or something would be kind of. Oh man. So there you go. Yeah, so that's typical Belfast, small world, isn't it? So we're back here now. We're sitting in a pub across the street from where we're gonna see Mark's show, where we're gonna meet him after, potentially, hopefully, as well.
Yep.
So yeah, we need to kind of figure out what we're gonna have.
Yeah.
I guess. Maybe we should do that off camera so as not to give the game away.
Just get to work. Yeah, PJ and I are here in the dark. You hear quite a bit of the audience noise. I'm quite excited about this.
It's a sold out show. The room is packed.
It is packed. Just a quick scan around. So, yeah, we'll let you know how it goes.
Looking forward to it. See you on the other side.
So we'd asked Mark before the show if he could lend us some time for an interview.
If I can get a little bit of level from you, Mark, if that's okay.
Sure, okay, this is me speaking, this is the volume at which I speak.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Andy?
And me as well. Over that way.
Yeah, not too bad. I've got a really sore throat, so I'm going to try to stay out of it.
That's okay. This is the first time you two have met in person, right?
Yeah, well, about 2 hours ago.
Amazing. How's that been?
Not awkward at all. Totally fine. No, it's a big day. It's a big day for everybody. My first time meeting Andy. Andy's first time meeting me. Your first time meeting Belfast. So it's a day. And our podcast, I've Never Read Discworld, is all about firsts. It's Andy's first time reading the series. So yeah, we're thematically on point today.
Incredible.
Which has been awesome. Yeah. So Andy is the more fastidious of the two of us, and he made copious notes during your rather excellent show.
Oh, thank you.
What I've done is I've written some notes over other notes on several lines, so they're completely unintelligible.
The lighting wasn't great.
Yeah,
for
sorry.
our purposes.
Yeah, we don't design the lighting specifically for people taking notes in the crowd. I'm afraid. I know it's not much thinking ahead there. In the next time, maybe get one of those pens with a little light in it.
Yeah, they love that.
Like film critics use.
Absolutely.
It was a really great show. Really enjoyed it. I really learned a lot. So thank you. Well done. How would you sum up our broad overview of the show? Introduce it to people.
It's a celebration of everything Terry Pratchett was and believed, and his work, and it's a rough summary of his life. I wouldn't call it a biography show. The book I wrote is a biography. The show is more about who he was, not sort of what he was, if that makes sense. I worked very hard to make sure that it would work if you were a big fan, and it would work if you were kind of a casual dropping in and out fan, or somebody who read the books a few times when they were younger, or if you'd just been dragged along by your wife. And it had to work for all those three groups, and that was quite tricky. So people seem to think it does, so that's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, from our point of view, Andy, we're on, what book are we on now?
We've both just read Small Gods, but haven't recorded that.
Incredible place to be.
Yeah,
okay.
so
this is where things really kick off for you. Like Small Gods, the run after Small Gods is what comes next? Reaper Man?
Men at Arms.
Men at Arms. Oh, so you go Men at Arms, Soul Music,
yeah.
Interesting Times,
Yeah.
Masquerade, Feet of Clay, Hogfather, Jingo.
Yeah.
Fifth Elephant, Last Continent, Carpe Jubilum, Fifth Elephant. That is an incredible run of books.
Yeah.
You've got a treat ahead of you. I've got a better way of pitching the show, by the way, thinking about it.
Go for it.
It's a stand-up comedy show about Terry Pratchett.
Boom. Nailed it. Yeah.
What I found coming through there was that you really were channeling his style of comedy.
That's not
his voice.
That's not intentional, because that is just that I as a comic, I've been reading Terry Pratchett since I was 12 and I'm 42. So I've 30 years of reading of that comic voice has definitely soaked in. But also, I think the reason that they resonated with me so much then is because I'd already kind of developed a bit of what I liked as a comic and a kind of a style of writing. Because even then I was writing stuff, and I think it felt like it syncs with how I thought about the world and how I wrote anyway. So I'm not intentionally trying to do Pratchett style humour. It's more that I inevitably do Pratchett style humour.
Yeah.
And it's just more apparent because of what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I find that your explanation of how you got into it really interesting, really similar to my own in terms of like being handed a copy of Guards when you were 12 years old. Like, that's exactly what happened to me, and my sister gave me a copy. So that how that humour just becomes innate, but how there's point of views, I think. Like, you obviously are really passionate about like the themes and the message that Terry had as well, and obviously like to get up on stage and do a whole show about it obviously means a lot to you, I guess.
Yeah, it does. I think his worldview is really persuasive. I think he will be the first one to say that his morality is the same as Bill and Ted's morality. It's the golden rule of Christianity: is be excellent to each other. It's do unto you as unto others as you would want them to do to you, and that's kind of that view is at the center of all his writing. Once you've got that, you've got everything.
Totally. Yeah.
But I think his morality is really interesting and really true, and his sense of right and wrong is both black and white when it needs to be, and nuanced when it needs to be. Because he was, people always say, what would Terry think about X issue? And I always think it won't be what you think he thinks. He will have a view that is much more nuanced. He would have a view that was more nuanced and more interesting, and would be a take that none of us have thought of, and wouldn't be able to be boiled down to a couple of nifty sound bites. And I've always loved that about his writing. He understood people so well, and for all of their good. Well, there's the great quote, "Good omens," isn't it? The ills of the universe are not from people being fundamentally good or fundamentally bad, but fundamentally people.
Yeah. No, I felt really lucky to be exposed to that at that age, and it sounds like you do as well. So, like, do you feel like you're catching up?
It soaks in.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of catching up to do here.
Yeah.
I think that's a moral code. It's not an unusual one. So it's not like, sometimes I think it's not like reading Terry Pratchett books made me who I am, because mostly I was reading them, nodding at those bits, going, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I feel so lucky to be going on this journey, and like, why didn't I do it 20 years ago?
Then we wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't be able to sit here with Mark. So
what a treat you've got ahead of you, because you're about to go into what I call the sort of mid-period Discworld. I always think Discworld is like this, is essentially three eras. You've got early Discworld, which I kind of count as up to Guards, which is setting up the world, essentially. And then mid-period is, count Eric, I guess, because Eric is a bit more of an afterthought, really. But from sort of Moving Pictures onwards to Thief of Time, I think, is the middle period, and then the Truth onwards. They overlap slightly, because the Truth is before Thief of Time. But I think there's a different worldview after you get to the Truth.
Yeah, like Industrial Revolution.
Yeah,
sort of,
and it's really interesting. There's a bit, and you'll get to this at some point. There's a bit in the Truth where Lord Vetinari comes to visit the office of the newspaper, the Ankh-Morpork Times, that's just been set up, and basically says, "Was this built on an ancient temple? Are there going to be creatures from another dimension and tentacles ripping through our reality? Will there be fireballs?" And he kind of summarizes some stuff that happens in previous books, and they're like, no, and it's basically Terry's way of kind of looking at the audience and going, "I'm not doing that anymore." Like, and you're in the last hurrah of that sort of thing, and you can almost see those crossovers. I don't think the dungeon dimensions come up again now. For you guys, I think you're at...
It's one of the things. Well, we've had several debates about why is this always the dungeon dimensions? Why are the bad guys always the dungeon dimensions? But I've always been impatient to move past that in the podcast, and we're getting into that.
What's interesting is the dungeon dimensions aren't real.
Yeah,
they're it's what actually is the enemy is chaos, and and that chaos is always brought around by petty bureaucracy.
Yeah, and when you have that switch from the dungeon dimensions, just like Lovecraftian Greeblies, to the auditors.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's where that
which
really
almost represent the same thing.
Yeah, but in a
different way. But that's there all the way through. Trimon in The Light Fantastic isn't a evil villain. He's a petty bureaucrat.
Yeah.
And Once in Guards is a petty bureaucrat, and it's kind of senseless rule following that is actually the real baddie.
Yeah, it's been great to sort of to go on Andy with this journey, because like I would have dipped in and out over the years, and there was like some books that I didn't read, so I'm like making an effort to kind of complete the series now. And I noticed you were a bit hesitant to give spoilers for the Shepherd's Crown on stage, and like I know I definitely put off reading it, because I knew that when I read it that would be the end of Discworld. And I wondered, did you feel any like trepidation about that whenever?
I did. It occurred to me. It did occur to me maybe I'll never read it. Maybe I'll just leave it on the shelf. And then I thought, I really want to read it. I always say, like, actually, if you want to always have a Discworld novel, always have a Terry Pratchett book that you've never read, so there's always one more to look forward to.
Yeah.
The Long Cosmos is right there.
Yeah.
The Long Cosmos, the final book of the Long Earth series.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's all right.
Okay.
If you never read it, your life is not going to be any worse. If you never read The Shepherd's Crown, you're missing out on quite, some wonderful storytelling.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
But if you never read The Long Cosmos, yeah, you'll be all right.
So you have read everything then? You've done.
Oh, I've read. I mean, I dare say I've read more than almost anybody.
Yeah.
Because I've read like loads and loads of his 1970s journalism.
Yeah, well, Andy's holding a copy of it there beside him on the table, and the fact that you went back to get the original Carpet People as well.
I'd say there are very few people who have read the amount of Pratchett writing that I have. I mean, there's probably Colin Smythe, Pat and Jan Harkin, who were the people who unearthed the recent Lost Stories stuff, and a few others. But it's a lot of effort to be able to track that stuff down. You have to go to you basically have to go to the newspaper archive and spend ages going through trying to find, and some of it is quite dry journalism. But then there's also some really wonderful, there's some wonderful short children's stories.
Yeah,
But there's also some really, really wonderful columns, like comic what's the word, like op-eds. And he writes some, which are the stuff I put in the Tales from Roundwood book, that are really where you can see him developing his comic voice. So, yeah, I've done the homework.
Yeah, you certainly have. Go ahead, Andy.
When I reached Moving Pictures, book 10 chronologically, I decided to try and do a top 10 for the podcast. Impossible, so I'm not going to ask you your favourite, but do you have a favourite like series or group of characters?
Depends on the day. It really does. I mean, I don't like grouping them by series. Because I think they overlap a lot anyway, they don't go that neatly into each other. It's more themes, and there are books with similar themes, like Truckers and Small Gods, were written at the same time and are thematically incredibly linked, but take place in literally different universes. So when you put a gun to my head, probably the Witches books, but then on another day I would say the Guards books. I mean, I think those are the two that are really sharp and really have the most humanity in them. And I could read Terry writing Nanny Ogg all day. He writes that character so well. Have you ever read Nanny Ogg's cookbook?
No, it was on my Christmas list this year. Nobody bought it for me, so I'm not bitter about that at all.
It's wonderful. It's not just like the recipes are fine. That's all funny, and there's intros to the recipes that are fine. But at the back there's like an extra chapter of Nanny Ogg's kind of guide to etiquette. And it's entirely written in character, in first person, and it's just the most wonderfully observed piece of character writing. Like he inhabits that character, and he's so fun, and it's so good and so funny. And there's very few of his characters he could do that with, I think. He could do it with Nanny, he could do it with Vimes. I'm not sure many others.
That's totally fair. Somebody asked you at the show, but just for the purposes for our listeners who weren't here, you recommended a particular book as an intro. We're doing it chronologically because that's the task we've set ourselves. But you want to maybe just tell our listeners what book you might recommend them to jump in at if they haven't started from the start?
Well, Terry always said Mort. Terry always said Mort was the book where he discovered the joy of plot, and that is the first one. Did you find this? Like when you how did you feel about this? Did you read Mort and go, oh, it's all focused, it's all come into?
I had difficulties with Mort. Actually, I really didn't warm to it as much as I expected, and I think that was due to the high expectations. Equal Rights now.
Equal Rights is a wonderful book. It's just not quite Discworld yet, but it is a wonderful book, and it's I think really interesting. I think what I always think, and genuinely, you could pick any book between Mort and Fifth Elephant and at random, and they all work in almost any order. You can generally go, oh, hang on, that must have happened before that one. Oh, he's a captain, not a corporal now, so I guess I can work that out. But I mean, I read Guards first, and then I read The Colour of Magic, and then I read Witches Abroad, and then I read Small Gods, and then I read Mort. And I never you can dot around. After that, he starts to assume you know a few things. He stops explaining stuff. Even that, I think you could pick up Night Watch and still read it from
Especially in this day and age with wikis and stuff.
Yeah.
You can always just,
Exactly. You pick up Night Watch and read it from the start. You could pick up Going Postal and read it. Going Postal is actually a really good intro point.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
I always recommend Feet of Clay as a good intro point, actually, because it's such a good mystery. It's a good murder mystery, whodunit kind of thing, and it's a really well put together kind of Agatha Christie level of murder mystery, and it's genuinely you're following the clues and you're trying to work, and it's a really, as a plot, it works really, really well, and you can come into that one cold, and it's a very evocative book, and it's a police procedural, it's a murder mystery, it's about the nature of man. It's all that thing that Terry does, where it's about so many things at once. It's about what does it mean to be alive. It's about automatons. It's a parody of Terminator. There's there's so many different things going on in it. So I always think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, we're looking forward to that one.
We're gonna have to watch time, and this is a question loaded with tangential possibilities. We recently asked ourselves, who would you cast in a Discworld TV series? Have you any actors that in mind?
So, I mean, this is people argue about this, like I back and forth forever. Terry, I mean, there's a very obvious one that everyone screams out immediately, which is Miriam Margolyes as Nanny Ogg. Yeah. That's super obvious. Although actually, I think somebody once suggested casting French and Saunders as Granny Weatherwax and Nanny Ogg, which I think works really nicely.
Yeah, and almost like the more time goes on, the more it becomes like plausible.
So, well, also cast them relatively young, because you don't if you cast Miriam Margolyes and Dame Maggie Smith, you're not going to get that many films out of them. No. God bless them. But, Maggie Smith is not going to be making films in a decade.
They both have a few stunts they should do, perhaps, as well.
Hi, Suze. I'm doing I'm on a podcast. We'll be out.
We're wrapping it up. Yeah.
Don't worry.
What about your Vimes? You've been big on Vimes. Got to try for Vimes.
Interestingly about that, what's convinced me about this, John Culshaw's done the audiobooks for the new Discworld audiobooks, and he does Vimes as Sean Bean, and it is so perfect. And I'd never have thought of Sean Bean, but now I can't think of anyone else.
I had the pleasure of working with him once, and I can say that actually, I can see that for sure. I always wanted Richard Dormer to do it, and then they did it. And they sort of got it a bit wrong, and now.
I mean, somebody I know within the Pratchett circle, and I'm not going to say who they were, said that one of the things they disliked most about the watch is that it deprived the world of Richard Dormer playing Vimes properly.
Yeah. Have you seen Blue Lights?
No, but I've heard people say that
contemporary cop show Richard Dormer doing Vimes.
Richard Dormer in Blue Lights is his Vimes.
And that made me angry about it all over again. But yeah, before save me from doing that, right? Any final words?
Yeah. So this is Belfast is your opener. Can you list off where you feel?
Yeah, plug your disc.
So okay, we've got a couple of weeks off before the tour proper starts. This is kind of like a.
We'll hopefully get this up online.
So the next date is until the 1st of February, and then I'm in Totton, Taunton, Banbury, Milton Keynes, Swindon, Northampton, Birmingham, Colchester, Brighton, Andover, Tunbridge Wells, Bromley, Beccles, Maidenhead, Guildford, Southend, Hexham, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Middlesbrough, and Buxton, and then I'm doing the UK Game Expo and then the Discworld convention.
I'll list a link to Mark's website, which has all the links to where you can buy tickets and that. It's fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
Highly recommend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on, Mark, and chatting to us.
Thank you.
Nobody has read more Discworld than Mark officially, so it's good to have him on the show.
I think that there's only a finite amount of Discworld you can read. It's more Pratchett.
Yes, that's unfortunately the case. So, yep, thanks again, and good luck with the rest of the tour.
Thank you.
All the best.
All right. Well, the day after.
Yeah. What a great show. Yeah.
Was a great show. Yeah. It's nice to have a bit of time to reflect on it. It was great to meet Mark. Such an inspirational guy from my point of view.
I felt we could have talked to him for 20, 30 minutes. Just such a friendly guy, so open and yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, you can tell it's a real
labor of love for him, the show and the book and everything. And just to reiterate, like how strongly we recommend going to see the show if it comes anywhere near you, and you're in any way. I mean, if you're enough of a fan to be listening to us, you're definitely enough of a fan to go and listen to Mark. He's got PowerPoint, he's got laser pen, he's got music cues. I mean, like his production value just blows us out of the water. So yeah, if that in any way interests you, I can't encourage you any more strongly to go see the show. It's really just really heartwarming and really charming and really interesting and informative and just like, yeah, just go see it if you can.
There were a few quotes from books, as you might expect, but it was really about Terry rather than the books. Did you
Mm.
find yourself learning stuff that you didn't know about him?
Yeah, a few bits and pieces. Yeah, so I think I've maybe alluded to it on the pod before how like I've been trying to read the other biography, Rob's biography, uh, and I'm taking it really, really slow. It's very detailed, especially about his upbringing and stuff like that. But I think Mark's overview was more kind of like relating Terry's life to his work. I guess that's the nature of the show is like he's drawing these really tangible connections between like things that happened to Terry in his formative years and like things like quotes from the book, as you say, and he's drawing direct lines between them. I think I haven't really seen much of that in Rob's book yet, anyway. So I think, yeah, I was definitely it definitely made me think about those connections that maybe I hadn't realized existed before, and that was yeah, that felt really special actually.
We should say that Rob, who was Terry's literary partner,
Assistant, then became his business manager, I believe.
right?
His surname's just left me. So
Wilkins.
yes, we're all on first name terms now in the Pratchett verse, aren't we? You know, me and
I'm,
you, and
I'm in the
Mark and
circle.
Rob. Yeah.
I had to
Um,
wear a hood and a blindfold though. Uh,
one
um,
of the we joined the elucidated brethren, didn't we? Yeah.
so Rob has worked with Mark on the show.
Yeah, that was
Uh,
cool to learn. I didn't obviously I had no idea that that was the case because I did think it was a bit weird that there had been those two biographies so close together. But it was really nice to hear that they collaborated on the show. And there's a potential spoiler there that we'll maybe leave out for anybody who does want to go see the show. Um, so yeah, it does like we laugh like, but it does feel like there is a bit of a community there in terms of other writers who are involved in kind of continuing Terry's legacy and celebrating his work and stuff. And it's nice to see that they all kind of get along and they all kind of sing from the same hymn sheet and have the same mission. So yeah, it's really nice, really heartwarming.
I want to talk spoilers for just a minute. So,
Oh yeah.
Mark did say at the start of the show, this is for, um, if you've read one Discworld or zero or all 41. Um, and there's a few sort of the odd stray spoiler. Mark likes his tangents. There's certainly quotes. Um, what I found, because I've been dead set against any kind of spoilers, and
Yeah.
PJ's had to like recant it at the church a dozen times.
And counting.
But I feel now I don't really care as much about spoilers. I think Mark's show was breaking down or accelerating, not breaking down, process that was already happening with me.
Yeah,
Um,
that's interesting. Why is
yeah,
that, do you think?
I I I think so. There's a crossroads with a sort of a growing interest um, in Terry Pratchett, the man,
Mm,
and once you come like I have as a sort of a newbie trying to sort of isolate, and then you meet other Discworld fans who are remarkably enthusiastic uh, energy about it, then they will talk um, about characters they've never met, and it's just like yeah, I'm just letting it all wash over me. If somebody tells me, the plot of a whole book in like laborious
yeah.
detail, I'm like,
I mean, that's not
talk to the
ideal, but
hand.
yeah. No, it's
But
a fair point.
nobody's done that. Nobody's even come close to that.
Not yet, anyway. That's a fair point, and I think actually Mark alluded to it in the show once or twice how how interconnected the Discworld books are. You know, overlaps of characters and settings, and the sort of the various ongoing series within Discworld that kind of dovetail with each other. So yeah, for fans, like it can be hard to discuss one book. You know, to only discuss the books up to a certain one because there's so much influence for the books that come later and characters that appear in each other's stories and stuff like that. Um, but he did mention, and like as I've been trying to keep it as spoiler free as possible at your insistence, but Mark did tell us, you hopefully probably will have already heard, you know, about this kind of golden phase of Discworld that he considers that we're about to enter into. So I think like once you do that stretch, once you do those next like 5 or 6 books, then I think there'll be very few conversations that you'll have to avoid because you'll be very much caught up with like the golden era, if there is one, you know. Certainly a lot of the main touchstones will be covered. Um, in terms of like those big story arcs with the witches, with Vimes, wrapping up to an extent with Rincewind. So yeah, well. Hopefully you're excited. You know, hopefully by like engaging in that and by like learning a few spoilers, it's increased your kind of excitement for the series rather than diminished it.
Yeah, there's little seeds there of like I've had a few characters' names put at me, and I just kind of don't know who they are without getting sort of overexcited. You know, I'm still very much excited to read what's ahead of me. I want more guards. I want more witches.
Yeah,
I want more Rincewind, and I know that I'll be meeting new characters along the way, like Small Gods, which we'll be talking about next time. Has it's a relatively small cast, but it does have a lot of world building in it.
yeah,
And
for sure.
I've got a feeling that some of that at least will be returned to.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about that in more detail next time. But you're right. I mean, the world is now so fully realized, and it's something I feel like I was banging on a lot about at the start, but maybe I haven't been so much recently because I was almost maybe surprised between the books that I hadn't read plus the ones that I'd almost forgotten, just like how much work there was to do to establish the world and the start of the series. Whereas, yeah, like by Small Gods, we were like we have a whole series of theology as well of established, you know, with which to build on and which Terry expertly draws stories from as well. So like, yeah, there's so much there, isn't there? Like, and you're, yeah, what's gonna come next? It's so I'm having to do it again. I'm having to stop myself from from spoiling stuff. But yeah, Lords and Ladies and Men at Arms, the two that come after Small Gods, I think, especially after hearing Mark allude to certain things, I think you're gonna really vibe with those two.
Excellent.
The other thing that we were sort of talking about, I guess, just before we came on, in terms of like Mark's approach versus ours, like we've set ourselves quite a specific task here in terms of reading the entire Discworld book series and various tangents into TV shows and movies and comics and stuff like that. Whereas Mark is really presenting his show and his book as like the life and works of Terry Pratchett in the round, like loads of stuff that's not connected to Discworld. And I wonder, obviously, you've set yourself quite a Herculean task here already, but does it make you think that like you've set yourself too narrow a task and that you want to kind of you want to
uh,
kind of expand it out into the larger canon of Terry Pratchett, or
41 books is quite a lot, but yes, absolutely. I want to do all the comic books, all the films. I've been unable to resist the urge just the last couple of days, just looking up bibliographies
yeah, yeah.
online and
But what
um,
about the other novels? Like, I mean, what about like the Baxter collaborations and Nation, and what about even the kids' books and stuff? Are you interested in
yeah,
going back and reading Carpet People and you know starting from the very start, or
maybe. I mean, I already came in reading Truckers, Diggers, Wings. I've got a copy of Only You Can See of Mankind at home.
oh yeah, so yeah, that's right. So it's not like you were completely unaware of any of that stuff coming into this anyway. So
Uh,
you haven't read
yeah,
Carpet People.
I
You've read
haven't
Truckers,
read.
Diggers, and Wings, but not Carpet People. Okay, and Only You Can Save Mankind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
so I
what
haven't
else?
read that yet. I've got it at home.
Oh
I
right, okay,
read
okay.
Strata just before we started this podcast.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because we were
and
thinking about doing an episode on Strata. It is making me think that is maybe something we should do as an aside, maybe down the line when we need another little kind of Discworld break. If we do,
uh,
Strata might be one to come back to.
and I would like to check out his short stories collection. Um,
Yeah, well, that's actually should mention that little pamphlet that Mark was selling on the day, which I might have a copy.
yeah, I wasn't sure whether to mention it or not, but yeah, Mark
Well,
has
I think
collected.
it's another great reason to go see the show.
Right,
Um, Mark is selling
absolutely.
his own book, obviously his biography, which you can get from him signed. He's also collected this little pamphlet called, I don't know if you can see that, not very well, called Terry Pratchett Tales from Round World, and it's annotated and compiled by Mark, and it's a collection of early stories that were first printed in newspapers. So some of them are columns, sort of factual pieces, and some of them are short stories for children that apparently the newspaper he worked for used to publish. So it's very short. It's only 21, 21 pages long. He's selling it for the princely sum of £5 at the show. But that is some real rarity stuff. Like that's like a proper collector's item. I think that will be very hard to come by.
I
Otherwise,
sat and I read it today. I
I've already
read
just
some of
lifted
it
it
on
out
the
of my bag.
bus last
Yeah,
night, and the second piece in there is like a whoa moment.
yeah. I think I'll
Um,
probably maybe try and get stuck into it
yeah,
tonight, actually.
it's a really good collection, and yeah, I don't want to spoil it for but yeah, bring an extra five of the show. Get a copy of Mark.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
really
Yeah.
really worth it.
Something quite unique. It's got yeah, you definitely won't be able to see this if I hold it up to the camera, but it's got a
Go for it.
picture of a younger Terry in his jumper looking like a bit of a serial killer, I think. Like I don't know if I would necessarily want to cross this guy. It's like you know it's like the thumbnail for like a Netflix documentary about yeah, true crime or something. But that's cool. That's a really unique item that I think certainly at the moment is only available from Mark at his shows. So that's I was gonna say it's well worth the price of admission. The show itself is already exceeds that. So yeah, hopefully we've sung enough of his praises now. I mean, they're all very well deserved, but and he was very generous with his time as well. So yeah, that was cool. Yeah, and it's not something I would use, even though like obviously Terry's one of my favorite authors. Like I'm not a big kind of one for like noodling around and that kind of thing. Like going and spending my Sundays listening to people talk about books. I feel like I spent enough time, you know, being forced to do that as a humanities student that like you know giving somebody else money to take up my free time to listen to them talk about books is like still feels a little bit wrong, but I'm glad that you kind of arranged it and that you got the band together in real life for
Yeah,
the first time.
it was the weirdest thing because as regulars know, I usually spend a bit of time gathering images to go with covering my edits. And I'd noticed an awful lot of Pratchett's books had been adapted for stage, and I just thought, wonder is there any in Belfast planned, or have there been any? Of course, no. But just by utter synchronicity, this was like about a month before Mark's show, or 6 weeks, and this turned up right on the doorstep. So that was a stroke of luck.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Yeah, it's become a sort of impromptu New Year's resolution for me now to try and yeah, do a bit more of that kind of things to maybe engage a bit more actively and a bit more critically with the arts, darling. You
Do you
know.
know what my big takeaway from Mark's show was? And I think something you all know. You might not know much about Terry. You might know a lot, but Terry was a big man. He achieved, set aside Discworld, set aside 41 Discworld books. He achieved a lot in his life.
Mm,
He was internationally respected. He was generous. He was funny. I mean, it's always great when you meet a well-regarded author who's a well-regarded person.
mm, yeah.
And it was just so so much love for him, justly so.
Yeah, and
He is a
especially
big character, like,
yeah,
yeah,
but like you say, like totally, like almost universally well regarded, and like in this day and age, that's quite rare. And I think there is a lot more attention put on like artists and writers and people in the public eye. There's a lot more attention put on their opinions and beliefs, and they're sometimes kind of like feel like they have to have an opinion and a belief on everything. But like Terry, from the day, although he was an early adopter of the internet, but even from the days before the internet, I mean, he had a very clear set of principles, and they're principles that I, for the most part, almost unanimously agree with, and he never really seemed to waver from them. And right up until the end, like you were sort of alluding to, going to Parliament over the issue of assisted dying and stuff like that, it just shows you, yeah, like the man he was, I guess. And it's like, yeah, it's reassuring to know that like I've had my life shaped by somebody. I've had my creative life especially shaped by somebody who at least seemed to be a good egg. Not about to pull the rug under me with some like QAnon bullshit or whatever.
yeah. And I think that's where Mark's show came in, is like the shine a light on, those principles are in his books. They're in
Mhm.
the Discworld novels, but and for those who know him and followed him, they could see that in his character. And the show brought out that, like, I imagine, um, most documentaries or interviews with him would do.
Yeah, it's nice to have that. I mean, the inclination, I guess, we've got somebody like Terry Pratchett. He did go to a lot. He attended his own convention every other year, and he did a lot of others, a lot of interviews and stuff. It's like you can let him speak for himself, but to see him through the eyes of somebody who has been so profoundly affected by his work, like Mark, I think that's a valuable perspective as well, and it's one that I related to massively. And I said to you before we came on that like I think for the entirety of this podcast, I've been trying to articulate like why Discworld means so much to me, and like why Terry's work means so much to me, and like I mean Mark just did it brilliantly, did it way better than I ever could, just in terms of like articulating what Terry believed about the power of stories and like and the good that's the good effects that stories can have in the world, and the powerful forces of change that stories can be in the world and in people's lives. And that's been the big takeaway for me. The number one thing I think that's probably affected how I live and how I work is that. And I think you can get that from reading his books, obviously, and you can get that from watching interviews with him and stuff. But if you get somebody who's done a lot of research and has a lot of passion, like Mark, and to hear them just like articulate it in such a beautiful way, I thought that was worth the £10 on Sunday afternoon
Yeah,
easily, like all day long. So yeah, that was great. I mean, he's yeah, as I say, he's way better at it than I am. He's put a lot more work into it than I have, and he absolutely nailed it, 100%.
absolutely. It was a magical experience. I want to pick up his book. And actually, just while I remember now, thanks to Mark for doing that, we've already said. And thanks also to the Dirty Onion and the Black Box for letting us host our interviews here.
Yeah, yeah, it was a great little afternoon just spent on one street basically in Belfast, on Hill Street in the Cathedral Quarter of Belfast. If you're ever in town, come down, check out the Black Box. It's a great little venue. Go across the street for a pint in the Dirty Onion. It's an interesting it's an old warehouse, an old red brick warehouse, now a pub. Yeah, it's just a nice little part of the world to come down and spend a bit of time in, read some books, have some nice chats, drink some nice beer, some good company, and some good conversation. And yeah, highly recommended. I mean, we can't promise that me and Andy will be there every time, it won't necessarily. Mark certainly won't be. But no, it was great. Yeah, and everybody looked after us really well. And yeah, I would do it again in a
If
heartbeat.
anybody was wanting to put on a stage adaptation of one of Pratchett's books, Black Box would be an excellent venue.
Would be a good venue, actually,
Yeah.
yeah. And judging by the crowd, we should mention that Mark's show was sold out as well. His first show of the tour on a Sunday afternoon, and he sold it out. So there's obviously an appetite for Pratchett related content,
Yeah.
which maybe we should capitalize on.
Yeah. free promotion opportunities here.
Absolutely.
Do we want to go on and look at some of our posts that we've been neglecting?
If we have some, yeah, this feels like as
Yeah.
good an opportunity as any.
For ages, it was just roasty buns turning up, and now we've got like sackfuls of the stuff.
Awesome. Gotta respect Roasty for keeping the lights going there, keeping the lights on.
Thank you, good man. So we've been running the occasional poll on Spotify, and
You say we,
six.
Andy has. I don't know how to use Spotify, so this is news to me as well. I can't wait to hear the responses.
So some months ago, back when we did Guards, actually, we asked what people would like to see more of in our podcast, and two people said personal anecdotes.
Oh dear.
With that checked.
Oh yeah, I guess yeah.
Yeah.
This whole episode has been a personal anecdote, so enjoy.
And one person said deep Discord knowledge. So that's PJ's department. But I think
Okay.
he's been doing pretty. We'll give him an A for that.
I mean, compared to Mark, I've been slacking. I feel like, yeah, definitely after meeting Mark, I feel like I need to up my game. Okay, I take that on board. That's a good note. I'm on it.
We got 3 votes for the favorite sister of the Weird Sisters.
Okay.
1 vote each.
I mean, that feels right. That's fair.
Yeah.
It kind of makes me a little bit happy, actually. It just shows you what well constructed, cast of characters it is. Not a great sample size, to be fair, but what else?
I asked a general, have you read Discworld? Because I couldn't be bothered making up a real question that month. Jamesy Bluetooth says, yes, I thoroughly enjoy the sections with Rincewind encountering death. So that was 9 months ago, so that must have been one of our first.
Yeah, okay. So, well, yeah, early last year then. Yeah. Yeah, those were, yeah. There is something about that. I know I'm down on Rincewind sometimes, but like Rincewind and Death are a good natural comedy duo, you know. Any more?
One more, and there's a segue. On Spotify, we asked, how did you feel about pyramids? And the broken one said, just nicely finished this one myself. I love Pratchett's satire on gods and traditions.
It's interesting that they said that because I remember on my reread of Pyramids, stuff that I thought was in Pyramids, and I was like, oh, where's that bit? Is actually in Small Gods. So I kind of got them a bit confused in my memory. So yeah.
Oddly enough, our most shared episode was pyramids.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know if we did anything extra special that we don't usually do there.
It is one that I know it's one that people have opinions about, you know, like it's not, it wouldn't always be high up the list or whatever. Maybe because it's standalone, I don't know. But yeah, maybe it's when people are more interested on hearing our opinions to see if it matches their own. Whereas everybody loves Guards. What are you gonna say? You know.
Well, with top ratings on Guards, Moving Pictures, and Mort, and also of course episode 1, we've over 1,000 listens now for the Color of Magic episode.
Great. And it only gets better from there. Stay with us.
Some more stats before we come back to the mailbag. Our total plays, shortly after you've listened to this episode, we will have 6,000 plays.
Hey.
On YouTube, we reached 1,000 plays.
Hey.
51.9% of our audience is female, to 45.7% male. And you're most likely listening to us in the UK, the US, Sweden, Canada, Germany, or Australia.
Wow, I feel for the Germans and the Swedes who have to cope with our accents. So well done, guys.
Yeah,
Good job sticking it out.
Thanks for staying with us. Casting. So last episode we did our casting chat, and it's kind of exploded a bit on Facebook.
Yeah, we even got Mark to get involved. We got some opinions from Mark. Yeah. So yeah, it's definitely the zeitgeist right now. Yeah, big chat on Facebook about that.
And actually, Shell Boulder on Twitter got in, and I think Mark cited hers, which was Dawn French as Nanny Og and Jennifer Saunders as Granny Weatherwax.
Yeah, I can't believe I'd never thought of that before. Actually, it seems it's one of those. You know, it's a great choice because it seems so obvious in retrospect.
I think somebody else mentioned that on Facebook, and I added. I'd already said Julia Swahala as Magrat, so
yeah.
Ab Fab reunion.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And the longer the older they get, the more they grow into those roles. I think as well their relationship has had its ups and downs, Dawn and French, since their sketch show days, hasn't it? So you need a bit of tension in the granny nanny relationship, don't you? Yeah, I thought that was a great shout. Really, really good shout.
So Jonathan had Stephen Ray as Sam Vimes. What do you
Yeah,
make of that?
I mean he's a bit old now, isn't he? But then
Yeah,
Mark, but then
well,
Mark said Sean Bean, which I actually thought was great. Really inspired call. I know he got it from John Colsaw doing his readings, but like, yeah, that I mean, you can there's a grittiness to both those guys, like a proper like they've seen a thing or two. You know, they've been out in the rain with the cardboard boots on. Those two guys for sure. So yeah, and like as listeners know, my head canon for Vimes is totally Belfast accent. Like so, yeah, Stephen Ray for sure.
Lee Brimacombe Wood, I don't know if he'd seen our casting episode, but he arrived same place you did regarding Vimes, which is Jared Harris.
Yeah, yeah. Again, and it's totally unfair for me to say Stephen Ray Steele if I'm saying Jared Harris and I'm saying Sean Bean. Um, and yeah, Jared Harris could play it because he's so gifted with accents. He could play it with any regional accent that he chose, for sure. So yeah, yeah. Again, it just comes down to that roughness around the edges. But like for me, maybe compared to Stephen, Jared has a bit of a twinkle in the eye as well, though. That like he can bring a. I don't know if people have watched Foundation. It's quite hard sci-fi, so I'm sure there's a lot of overlap in our audience. But like he can still be a little bit funny, and I mean he still has to be funny. Like, Vime still has to be. It's still a Discworld, still has to be funny. So that's where I would maybe be slightly more hesitant about Stephen Ray, even though I love him as an actor. I think Jared Harris could maybe bring a little bit of the dry humor, maybe a little bit more to the front.
Yeah,
What do you think?
I find it. I haven't seen a lot Ray's in Gatehouse in the Shadowline, 7-part BBC drama.
Oh yeah,
Um, and Ray casts a very elderly, sharp figure in that. So I don't know. Tony Ingram had possibly one of the best suggestions on Thread. He said, I've been watching the old comedy drama of Wheaterson Pet over the last few days, and I think I'd cast Tim Healy as Sam Vimes, Christopher Fairbank as Nobby, Timothy Spall as Fred Colon, and Jimmy Neal as Detritus.
yeah. You can see it. I mean, it's a bit before my time off Weeders Impact, so I'm aware of it. And like, obviously, some of those guys have gone on to massive, massive things. But when you look at them in that, I'm just calling it up on IMDb now, and the image you have in your head of them, especially Timothy Spall, he just looks so unbelievably gormless. You can really see it. If you're not familiar with the show, it is a slightly niche choice. Just go look at the thumbnail on IMDb, and they're just such a motley crew, aren't they? They just fit the vibe of especially the early watch, I guess. The kind of guards era night watch so well.
Of
So
Wheaterson
yeah,
Pet. I'm going to go and watch an episode as soon as I get done with the Post Office versus Mr. Bates.
yeah.
Um,
God, looking at Tim Healy now. Oh my goodness, yeah. Good times. What else was there? What other ones that we didn't
Kevin
cover?
Andrew Murphy with one of the frequently occurring Helen Mirren as Granny Weatherwax.
Yeah, I think that's one I've heard bandied about before.
Valerie Moss also had that.
I think having seen her recently playing a bit against type in Only Murders in the Building, I was like, I don't know, I don't know, it's weirdly the opposite. She's playing a bit more of a kind of a softer character, but it just shows that range that she has. People think of her as that natural kind of slightly edgier older female character, but she's got such unbelievable range that she would give this really nuanced, well-rounded performance in it as Granny, because I think there is a danger of it becoming a kind of a one note, like this is the kind of grumpy witch, she's the severe one kind of thing that
Yeah.
isn't there. Like there's a lot more going on, and that's mostly in the narration in the book. So you'll need somebody who can kind of bring that out in a performance. All the kind of the full 3D nature of that character. So yeah, I think that's a good choice as well. And like she's got the right age, but she's also got like she's still quite high energy performer as well. So there's a balance to be kind of struck there too. Um, because yeah, as Mark was saying that you can't really have like Maggie Smith or whoever anymore. Because like even though they might look the part, they probably aren't up to the shenanigans anymore. Yeah. But I think Helen Mirren might be.
Colin Fitzpatrick had a few answers. First one took me a moment to sit and think about it, but I'm really for it. Star casting Benedict Cumberbatch as a patrician.
Yeah, I mean he's grown into that role for sure. Um, and the patrician is always kind of written as a sort of relatively ageless character anyway. But yeah, in terms of the British actors, and obviously the patrician's going to be British. In terms of the British actors who are kind of now who are aging into that level of gravitas that's required, I think Benedict Cumberbatch is kind of hitting that sweet spot now, isn't he?
He needs to slow down, does Cumberbatch, and I think that would be a perfect role for him. I have to get behind Giancarlo Esposito.
Oh yeah, I mean I guess that would be the non-British exception that I could allow. I can't remember if I did I suggest that during the casting thing or did you?
Yeah, I think that was your suggestion.
Uh,
Yeah.
I must have had a few glasses of wine by that point. I was loving it. But yeah, that would be maybe my. I think it was. I always do quite leaning into this thing where like you have your safe options and then you want to have at least one. You know when you're well, you know yourself. You know when you're casting for real life, if you're doing like a TV show or a radio play or whatever, like you always want to invite somebody to the audition who's maybe a little bit outside the box just to
Yeah.
see, just to see if there's something there that you haven't thought of. And yeah, so as Benedict Cumberbatch is one way to go. Giancarlo Esposito is very much another way to go. But I mean, he is the patrician of Bacon Brad, so like, and even of Star Wars or of the Mandalorian. Um, so maybe that's actually not as unexpected a choice as I like to think. I think I'm a bit clever for picking that, but I'm not really. Any other good ones?
Valerie Moss also had the Helen Mirren Granny Weatherwax one,
Yeah, it's a
and
good
has
choice.
went for the obvious choice of Miriam Margolyes as Nanny Og,
Yeah.
but just because it's obvious doesn't mean it isn't great.
No,
In
it's
fact, it
obvious for a reason.
probably is. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If it ain't broke.
Colin also has Mackenzie Crook as Rincewind.
Yeah,
Interesting.
again, it's another good choice. I think, oh, pardon me, in terms of bringing that energy that like David Jason was trying to bring in the color of magic, like Mackenzie Crook could match that energy like flawlessly, but just with that extra, what, 30 years, 20? Yeah, I'm sure he's at least 30 years younger than David Jason. um, just that extra bit of vim, I think, especially for like the physical kind of slapstick stuff, I think that could really help. And he's just got more of that gangly look. He's like more of the way that Kirby draws
Uh,
Rincewind, isn't he? Like, he's all elbows. So yeah, sorry, Mackenzie, but
Colin also had a suggestion for Two Floor. Masioka.
I don't know who's that. Let's
Masioka.
look at it.
Was he in Heroes? So I've not seen him in anything, but scrolling
Oh
through
no,
photos,
hold
it
on.
provokes lots of laughter when thinking of Two Floor.
Yeah, so I just watched, oh my gosh, yes, I just watched Blue Eye Samurai, which he's in as a voice actor. And he plays a kind of, fair to say, he plays a comic relief character not dissimilar to Flower. Um, so I would love to see him back in live action. Yeah, good point. Yeah, Heroes, that's going back. Um, and you always picture him with the glasses and stuff, don't you? The way that you picture Two Flower. So that is an excellent choice. Yeah, well, yeah, good call, good call.
Glennis Williams had one that comes a bit left field. I'm not sure if I'm the right person to comment on it. That is Olivia Colman as Lady Vimes.
Yeah, can see that. Big
Yeah.
time. Big time. Especially like with her kind of like since The Favorite and stuff, where she has kind of played these slightly more upper class kind of roles, but with all the same humor and all the same warmth that she brought to like her Peep Show role and her more contemporary roles. Yeah, I mean, I think we've all kind of reached the point now where we realize that Olivia Colman can pretty much do anything.
Yes.
So, yeah, absolutely. Why not?
Let's see. What's next? Anna Pylock, with Mark Heap as pretty much anyone, really.
Pretty much anyone. I mean, we need a ballpark, like.
So this is Brian and Spaced, is what I
Yeah,
know him
yeah,
as. So I totally see an unseen university role for him.
yeah. There's a wizard lurking there. Yeah, I mean, he's in Stardust, isn't he? He's one of the murdered princes, isn't he, in Stardust? So I feel like he's orbiting the world. He's in a gaming adaptation. He's playing a fantasy role. I mean, that's going back, I guess, 15 years or so now. But yeah, the Bursar maybe, or one of the highly strung wizards. And I think, yeah, the Bursar. You can picture him
Yeah.
kind of trailing along behind Ridgely, kind of all stressed out. Kind of, yeah, that's a good shout. And perhaps maybe 10 or 15 years ago, maybe Rincewind potentially. I think he's a bit too dry for Rincewind. I don't know if he's like the tension kind of simmers below the surface with Markeep, doesn't it? He doesn't explode enough. He doesn't have enough outbursts for Rincewind.
Sonia Theory has brought Tilda Swinton into the chat as Granny Weatherwax for giving us both that hard edge and the gravitas needed for specific
Yeah.
moments.
Yes, for sure. And again, somebody who can still bring the humor when required. That's a good call. No, I mean, I was trying to think like visually. Tilda Swinton's got quite a striking look. Like visually,
Yeah.
how would you approach that? Because it would almost feel a shame to give her the kind of the traditional witch, Granny Weatherwax, black robe, black hat, big boots kind of thing. But I still think she could work with that. But if you think
Yeah.
about like how she appears in Constantine and in Doctor Strange and stuff, they do a lot with her looks. So yeah, I don't know, one for a costume designer maybe to give some thought to.
Well, Paul Thompson has a better use for Tilda, the
Oh,
patrician. I
yeah,
can see that.
well,
Yeah.
yeah, again, a bit like the Richard Dormer casting, there's absolutely no reason not to gender swap the patrician. But the fact that they already kind of did it and it didn't really go that well in the watch is like, you know, I think they took a swing and missed at that. But had they took a swing with Tilda Swinton, they might have had a bit more success. Yeah, I can see that for sure as well. Her name escapes me now. Who actually did play the patrician in the watch? Because I'm not throwing her under the bus by any means. Because there was nothing wrong with the performance. It was just everything else, I guess. So I feel like I should just give them a shout out if I can just figure out who it was. Oh yeah, it was Anna Chancellor, and she was good. And I'm sure there would be a role for her in like a more authentic Discworld adaptation. I'm not quite sure as who, but
We
I'd say she
have.
put.
Oh,
Go ahead. Yeah, no, I'm gonna
sorry.
stop. I'm gonna stop talking about. Why am I talking about people who've already been cast in a Discworld?
Well, it's two more patrician suggestions. One from Sonia,
Yeah,
Mark Strong.
yeah. Love Mark Strong. Love Mark
Remind
Strong.
me who Mark Strong is.
So bald guy who's like a bad guy and everything. Doesn't narrow it down. Bald English guy who's a bad guy in every Hollywood. Try what's he been in recently? He was in 1917. Oh, he's Dr. Savannah in Shazam. No,
No, it's not. I
not even.
recall. I
Okay.
know I've googled him already, but
Yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah,
there was
he's
another
spot.
comic book.
I've seen
He
him
was in one of those.
something. Yeah.
He's in one of those. Was he in Kingsman? One of those. I know he's in one of those other like Mark Millery comic book things. Yeah, he's in Kingsman. The Imitation Game. Yeah, one of those like journeyman actor, but with a lot of charisma and like plays a lot of villains because he can do like a really good scowl where like less is more. Can fix a minion with a look, and they'll crumble. Like you can imagine the patrician doing. So yeah, that's an interesting shout. It would definitely Mark Strong without hair is much more intimidating than Mark Strong with hair. So it would mean the patrician would definitely have to be bald, is the only thing. So I don't know how people feel about that.
So Glennis has for the patrician, and Glennis really knows her arts and culture castings. David Tennant, but I didn't have the heart to tell Glennis, no, go away. I've just got David Tennant burnout at the moment. Russell T Davies has destroyed the fires that I was working up for opening my heart to the love of David Tennant. He's just pissed all over the place, and there's a lovely analogy. RTD pissing all over the place. Over to
Delightful.
you, PJ.
Yeah, I don't hate the idea. I think it would be a tough sell considering Good Omens, obviously, from an industry point of view. But like in a vacuum, in terms of like, is he capable of delivering the performance? Absolutely, yes. Does he have the right look? I would argue yes. Um, could the patrician be Scottish? You know, yes.
Yeah.
Like David Tennant's, like when he's being villainous, he tends to get a bit more Scottish, which I always like. So I can definitely see that. I do feel it's potentially, I hesitate to say a waste because, you know, the patrician's a great character, but he's not at the foreground of very many of the stories. Um, there are characters that we'll meet later, potentially much later, that I think David Tennant would have been good for. But yeah, we're still trying to vaguely stick to no spoilers. So
I think if Tennant played it a straight role, I would be open to that.
huh?
I think if Tennant played the patrician as a straight role, I would be open to that.
Yeah,
It's
I
completely
mean,
straight.
but like, is that not a waste? It
He's a
would be.
better actor when he's playing straight roles. When he's and when he's purposely comical and
Yeah,
sort of
I mean, I
knowing
guess
and
like the patrician is one of the few characters who is occasionally tries to be funny though. You know, he has a very obvious dry, really, really dry sense of humor that he uses as a weapon. So to like, you need somebody who can at least deliver that. Like, you don't want bug-eyed 10th Doctor or whatever number Doctor he was. I don't know. But you don't want Doctor Who David Tennant necessarily. But you need some sort of dry wit, something bubbling under the surface there. I don't know if he's had a performance that I would like paste over the top of that role necessarily, but I would be very curious to see what he could do with it for sure.
time heals all Doctor Who wounds.
Yeah.
So
Any other doctors you would throw in there? Just, Chris Eccleston, could he do it?
in a heartbeat, yeah.
I mean, it's odd that Peter Capaldi hasn't entered that conversation. Surely he's the patrician
Oh
all
yeah,
over.
I pretty sure I had him as
Oh
a
yeah,
choice.
no,
Yeah.
yeah,
What about
yeah.
McCoy? Is he too old?
I mean, nobody, as I say, he's written pretty ageless, so I think nobody's too old as long as they've got that. As long as they can be a little bit menacing, I think. Sylvester, I don't know if Sylvester McCoy can be menacing.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
I'm not familiar enough with the canon, unfortunately. So.
I've got a few more suggestions that are just for you because I've not gotten to those parts yet.
Okay.
So, from Lee Brimacombe Wood, I'd love a young Hugh Grant in cat mode as Moist von Lipwig, but as we
Yeah.
can't have him, I take Alex Lawther with Denise Goth as Adora Bell Dearheart.
Yeah. Sorry, give me the first name.
Hugh Grant as
No,
Moist,
Hugh Grant. Yeah, he was after that.
Alex
Who says he's
Lawther,
too old? Who's that? Lowther, spell that.
Lawther, which is the
Oh my
same
God.
surname as our
Oh,
wonderful sponsor, Ian Lawther. Thank you,
oh
Ian.
yeah.
Hope you're doing well.
Sorry, that's a real brain fart on my part. Yeah, I loved him in the end of the effing world. Loved him in Andor. Oh, he's gone too far the other way. I think he's potentially too young. We were talking about somebody there who I thought would be good for Moist, and I decided not to say it because I was like, I don't want to spoil stuff for Andy, but he's just decided to do it himself anyway. He has the right energy for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Like, what age is he? I wonder, does IMDb have that information for us? He's born in 1995, so okay, he's nearly 30. Okay, no, that's fine. It's just made me feel 100 years old, but no, actually, that's fine. Yes, I approve. I'm sure Alex Lawther is absolutely delighted to hear that I approve this hypothetical casting. He's great. Have you seen Andor?
No. Yeah.
Oh man, he's excellent in it. Yeah, okay, cool. Any other ones
Oh,
then that you
flip,
need
yeah, we
to?
got a few more. Rupert Van Sittart as the patrician.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, there is a lot to be said for just having those like journeyman older English actors to just like give them something that they can really sink their teeth into. So like this dude is like he's like one of the lords in Game of Thrones, and he's like hanging around in Braveheart, looking grumpy, and like he's made a career out of that. So to like yeah, give somebody like that a chance to actually have a bit of fun with the role, you know, to do the more arch knowing version of it, I think actually could be really fun. Yeah.
Lee again with a couple of witches suggestions. Michelle Gomez as a
Yeah.
perfect Granny Weatherwax. Sarah Lancashire as Nanny Og.
Yeah, that was my call. Yeah. And Michelle Gomez, did that come up before? Did we talk about her?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. We're all like, I love the Discworld hive mind on this, you know, because the characters are so well realized. Like, they really do conjure up really specific images in people's minds.
Sonia again with Miriam Margolyes as Nanny Og. So yeah.
Yeah. Because I
Behind
saw
Miriam.
Sarah Lancashire has been playing Julia Childs, uh, the chef, but who was also like an OSS agent during World War II. Uh, so she's got quite a kind of no nonsense look about her, you know. So I haven't watched any of the episodes of it, but like some of the stills I've seen from that show, again, sort of reinforce my belief that she would be a good shout for Granny.
Last episode, I intimated, suggested, might have told you that I didn't know who Sarah Lancashire was.
Yeah.
That doesn't represent me. It doesn't represent me. Of
I'm,
course, I know who Sarah Lancashire is.
I was gonna say, have you done anything to remedy that? Have you binged all of Happy Valley in the meantime?
I might have watched Midnight again. There you
Oh
go,
yeah,
RTT. You're back
it's
on
good.
the show. You might
Yeah,
guest someday. Uh,
I don't know.
uh,
After that piss, the comment about the piss, I'm not sure.
Glennis has a few other interesting suggestions.
Oh yeah,
David Diggs
oh
as
yeah,
Carrot.
yeah. I can see that. I just want to make sure. I just want to do that thing to make sure I know talk about the right person.
David Diggs has been in so much stuff that I'm not aware of it, but when I looked at his Wikipedia page,
Yeah. Oh yes, of course, from Hamilton. Yeah. As Carrot, yes. Yeah, because like I don't think I've ever seen as good a gormless smile as David Diggs has. You know, like he's like such a big grin and like such an open face, but he's like got a certain kind of stature as well, you know. So yeah, absolutely. What has he been in recently? I was in the, Sebastian in the New Little Mermaid. I feel like he can do better than that, can't he? But yeah, I've got a lot of time for him. That's a good shout. Really good shout. Oh yeah, he's in Snowpiercer. Yeah, he gets quite physical in the
yeah.
Snowpiercer TV series. Yeah, cool.
Glennis has some other guards, some other watch suggestions. Toby Jones as Nobby.
Okay. I mean,
Took me a
again,
moment with that, but
as
yeah, I think
as a
so.
character with no definable age, yeah, actually, you know, I can see it, and he is described as having like an unguardsmanly like physique, I guess, to put it diplomatically. So yeah, I think that yeah, that's a good shout actually, and he has that mean streak though, which I think would be a bit of a might be an interesting kind of play against type for Toby Jones. You know, like you see him with like a proper like dirty fag end hanging out of the side of his mouth and everything could be like that could be kind of fun.
Let's see, Sergeant Colon, Simon Pegg, John Favreau.
I mean, if it's Colon, if we're in that world for Colon, surely it's Nick Frost. I mean, if you're going to that world for the guards, like Nick Frost is Colon and Peg is Nobby, surely no. I mean, maybe not now that they're all rich, beautiful millionaires, but like back in the day, back in the space days, like for sure. Or maybe Smiley should have been Nobs. He'll kill me for that. But
Dennis also has Jack Loudon down for Carrot.
yeah, okay. Again, I'm just gonna refresh my memory. I definitely know the name. Yes. Yeah, I mean, I guess you go like, you know, who's big and ginger like at the minute, like who's like an up and coming British actor who's also ginger, then like yeah, you gotta go there. But I mean, in saying that, that's underselling him massively. I mean, he's in some really, really good roles recently. Slow Horses is going to clean up, I think, some awards this season. That Small Axe anthology series was quite good in that, from what I remember. He certainly got the right look, and I think as well, like, kind of got the right age as well. Like, there should probably be like a youthful energy to Carrot. So like, easiest way to get there is to cast somebody a bit on the younger side. Like, he'd definitely be significantly younger than David Diggs, I'm sure. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good call.
Glenn Carter had the same choice as myself, actually, for Lord Veterinary, Charles Dance.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
in terms of those big kind of like fantasy presences, you know, if you want to have that, like, and he can like, you know, he can be dry and he can be witty, and he knows when to raise an eyebrow at the right time and stuff. And I think if you were to go that kind of older English character actor route, you'd start with Charles Dance probably and work your way down then, wouldn't you? You know, yeah.
and Ian McKellen as Death, which I thought, yeah, that would definitely work.
Yeah, it would actually, wouldn't it? I mean, death is all about the voice at the end of the day,
Yeah,
isn't it? So, yeah,
McKellen
that's
hasn't spades.
yeah. And I wonder, like, what kind of, you know, like how much post processing, like how much echo would you want on Death's voice? Do you want it to sound like it's coming from the other world when you've got Ian McKellen, or would you rather he just sounds like he is, just like an older gentleman who's just going about his job, you know? It's like how do you dramatize the capital letters, you know, that make his voice distinct from every other character's voice? And if you have somebody as good as Ian McKellen, maybe you actually don't need to do that. You just
Right.
let it all come from the
Yeah.
performance. I don't know.
We've
It,
got two more suggestions, and these are in your wheelhouse entirely.
cool.
So Emily Blunt as Angua.
Yes, 100% can see that. I don't think she gets to do enough, or maybe I don't watch enough of her movies, but I don't think she gets to like be English enough for whatever reason. Like, you know, when you see her like being interviewed and stuff, and she comes across as like really warm and really funny and that, and you're like, then she has to be these kind of like slightly more stoic like American characters. And maybe I'm just watching the wrong movies. I know she's not like that in The Devil Wears Prada, for example, but I loved her in Tomorrow, or whatever that Tom Cruise time travel thing, Age of Tomorrow is. I thought she was great in that. So like, she obviously has the action movie chops, but there's moments of humor in that as well. Or where she like, have you seen it? Yeah,
No.
Edge of Tomorrow. No, um, where she gets to like properly beat up on Tom Cruise, and it's just a joy to watch.
Oh yeah, of course that would be, yeah.
Yeah. So like you can see like that kind of physicality, but maybe with a bit more of her warmth and a bit more of her vulnerability. To yeah, I'm trying not to spoil Angua's arc for you too much, but yeah, there's kind of layers and depth there that I think she could bring to it that would be required for some of the later storylines. Definitely, that's a
And
really good shot.
Sonia has Nicola Coughlan?
Oh yeah, from Dairy Girls,
Right. Oh, who's she in Dairy Girls?
Claire.
Claire. As Perdita X or Agnes Nit?
Yeah, I can see that. I feel that like, well, I mean, we all think of the Dairy Girls actors as being young, but they're not necessarily, you know. So she's probably getting to an age now where yeah, you could think about those kind of witchier characters. So yeah, so there's no shade on Nicola at all to suggest her for that role. And I mean, again, she's so funny. And like the two roles that she's known for are quite different, like Dairy Girls and Bridgerton, which is like all kind of high costume drama. And she disappears into both those roles, but brings so much humor. Like her timing is impeccable, and I think like yeah, especially for those kind of Discworld roles where you need to be good with the pun, let's say, then yeah, she would be an excellent choice.
Well, that's the list.
Is
It
that
went
the
on
list?
a
Oh,
bit
cool.
longer than I thought it would, but
Yeah, that's good.
really enjoyed spending time with you.
Always a
Thanks for hanging
pleasure.
in there. And our mailbag is still open. Next, we're covering Small Gods. Love to know what you thought of it. I've read it already. I have a lot to talk about, and so is Paige.
Yeah, absolutely. I just decided to look up out of curiosity. There's some fan art online of Agnes Knit that already looks pretty much like Nicola, and in a flattering way, by the way, Nicola, who I'm sure is listening. But yeah, no, I just wanted to satisfy myself. It's like, is that, yeah, it is a good choice. Um, Sorry, yeah, you're trying to wrap this up, but I could talk about this for hours. Obviously, I'll try to restrain myself. Looking forward to talking about Small Gods really, really soon with your good self, and hopefully with everybody else who's listening along. So yeah, let's do that, shall we?
Fantastic.
Thanks for stopping by, and we shall see you next time.
Cheers, folks.